With a franchise as vast and varied as Halo, it's not uncommon for any number of facts or pieces of trivia to be looked over or lost in the larger sea of information. As someone who prides himself on an extensive knowledge of Halo lore, I can personally attest to this, never mind that I'm sure any number of fans could relate instances of discovering some obscure facts. In light of this, I thought it would be fun to compile a number of facts about Halo that many of you probably didn't know about or maybe forgot over time. I know I certainly have. Mainly though, I want to look at some cool facts that don't really warrant their own dedicated videos, generally at least. A lot of these can and have fit into larger subjects worthy of deeper exploration, but on their own, they're pretty cool and worth highlighting. So in no particular order, here are 10 facts you probably didn't know about Halo. Number 1. The original trilogy took place over the course of 3 months. I think it's safe to say that all Halo fans know that the trilogy takes place in 2552. If nothing else, that has always been evident. However, the exact time period for the trilogy is something never made clear in the games themselves. So to discover that the classic Halo trilogy takes place over the course of 3 months is often mind-blowing for a lot of fans, as I can personally attest. And this isn't a fact that one can blame fans for not knowing. Halo CE almost never shows any dates throughout its campaign, and the one time it does, when Chief is watching Private Jenkins' helmet cam footage, it's the wrong date. As would eventually be revealed, Halo CE starts in the early morning of September 19th and ends on September 22nd, 3 days later. Outside of the books, the first time a date shows up in-game is Halo 2's opening cutscene, which establishes the game's setting as October 20th, 2552, almost a month after Halo CE. However, dates never appear again, and one could be forgiven for thinking that the entire game takes place over the course of a couple days. The way the in-amber clad is shown exiting slipspace makes it seem like the jump from Earth to Delta Halo was instantaneous or near instantaneous, but it's actually a 13-day trip. Yes, it's November 2nd in that scene. And then in Halo 3, we again get next to no dates, though one exception being the memorial scene at the end of Halo 3, which is March 3rd, 2553, a date we only know because it's in the scene itself. Dates for Halo 2 wouldn't be revealed until a Bungie weekly update in 2009, and the date for the Battle of Installation 00 wouldn't be revealed until 2010 on Halo Waypoint's forums. So yeah, fans certainly couldn't be blamed for not knowing. Still, when it all clicks, it's a pretty mind-blowing fact. Number 2. Did you know that humanity once had over 800 colonies? This fact is certainly an interesting story in its own right. Back in 2001, as Microsoft was getting ready for the launch of the Xbox and Halo CE, they created a webpage, xbox.com/Halo, to help promote the upcoming title. And on that page was a timeline detailing the history of the Halo universe leading up to Halo CE. Among many other facts on this page was, by 2490, human space encompassed more than 800 worlds throughout the Orion arm of the Milky Way, ranging from fairly well-tamed planetary strongholds to tiny hinterland settlements. Now, this page was created by Xbox rather than Bungie, and if you know anything about Bungie's Canon policy, anything they themselves don't directly publish was always open to retconning. For years, this number was dubious canon, but 2016's Halo Mythos brought up the 800 colonies figure again, securing its place in canon. So yeah, prior to the Human Covenant War, humanity had over 800 colonies of various sizes and function. When we look back now at the few dozen that survived the war in various states, it really puts the scale of the war into perspective. Number 3. The Orion candidates, aka the Spartan 1s, had children. As the name would imply, the Spartan 2s were not the first super soldiers produced by the UNSC. The 2 tacked on the end by program lead Dr. Halsey was put there to honor previous super soldiers the UNSC had fielded, the candidates of Project Orion, retroactively known as the Spartan 1s or Spartan 1.0s. Many fans are familiar with Sergeant Major Avery Johnson, one of the few known Spartan 1s, but thanks to the I Love Bees alternate reality game from 2004, meant to advertise Halo 2, we got to know a few more of those candidates and what they were up to after the Orion program was shut down in 2506. A few of these candidates would go on to have children collectively known as the Spartan 1.1s. The 1.1 moniker denoted that these children were augmented like their parents, though it remains unclear if they received chemical augmentations at a young age, or if their parents' augmentations had been passed down to them genetically. Regardless, it's a fascinating part of the lore that I know many in the lore community would love to see explored in greater detail. Number 4. The Didact got his name for being a bit of an ass. On the more humorous side, we have this little factoid. At this point, even the most casual fan should be familiar with the Forerunner known as the Didact. Once the leader of the Forerunner military, the leader of the Prometheans, the highest class of Forerunner warrior servant, and husband of the librarian, the Didact first showed up in Halo 3's terminals and made a proper appearance as the main antagonist in Halo 4. However, what fans may not be as familiar with is the fact that the Didact is not the being's true name. That would be Shadow of Sundered Star. In his younger days, Sundered Star taught at a war college where he earned a reputation for being, quote, overly demanding and too precise in his definitions. Didactic, from which didact is derived in the real world, means to instruct others, especially in regards to morals. So his students basically nicknamed him Capital T Teacher because he was a bit too strict, or in other words, a bit of an ass. Number 5. Prelates first appeared in a map description. This might sound a bit odd without the context, so let me give you some background. If you've read the short story Halo Shadow of Intent, either in an ebook or from its inclusion in Halo Fractures, you'll remember the character known as Tem Betek, a Sanshayum or prophet who was a prelate. A prelate was a prophet who had undergone genetic, physical, and chemical augmentation at the Sacred Promontory on High Charity. Basically, they were the prophet version of Spartans. Being as prophets were few in number by default, prelates were even rarer. However, Shadow of Intent wasn't the first place that prelates were mentioned. That honor goes to some of the flavor text for the Halo 2 DLC map, Gemini. While in-game its lore is limited to a one-sentence description, the manual included with the Halo 2 multiplayer map pack gives us a bit more detail on each map, including this line for Gemini. The restful and contemplative space towering above the lights of High Charity is meant as a refuge for thought and meditation by senior prelates in the prophet hierarchy. So yeah, a one-off line in a map description became the basis of an interesting class of Sanshayum and a great character in a book. Number 6. Humans discovered evidence of the Forerunners in the 21st century. Halo alternate reality games, or ARGs, have always brought fascinating new lore to the table. With Halo 3's Iris campaign, we got, among other things, the Society of the Ancients, a human organization from the 21st century that believed Earth had been visited by aliens in the distant past. While not an unfamiliar claim in our day and age, the Society was actually partially onto something. Founded by a man named David George in 1995, the Society came into being after David had a discussion with his neighbor, Aaron Elliott, at a barbecue one night. Aaron brought up a series of books he had been reading that talked about various unsolved ancient mysteries. Soon after, David became obsessed with the idea of ancient alien visitors, and by 2007, the Society had 510 members. As one would expect, the Society's evidence of ancient aliens included a number of classics including Stonehenge, the Antikythera mechanism, and crop circles, though to their credit, they cited one particular crop circle from 1985 rather than crop circles as a whole. However, they did stumble across actual evidence of Forerunners, this being a Forerunner symbol etched into rock 100,000 years ago by an ancient African tribal leader named Unchala. Number 7. Cortana has a sister. Sort of. Cortana is a special AI in a lot of ways, part of which were her intrusion routines and software that would prove vital in accessing Covenant systems in the final months of the Human Covenant War. However, before being implemented in Cortana, they were tested with another smart AI known as Kalmiya. Because of this, Dr. Halsey considered Kalmiya something of an older sister to Cortana. Kalmiya is an interesting AI in the Halo lore. As you know, AI are generally destroyed after 7 years, as after that they can enter a state known as rampancy, during which they become a danger to themselves and those around them. Interestingly though, Kalmiya was around for at least 15 years, having been created sometime before May 25th, 2537, and was destroyed on August 30th, 2552. How Kalmiya remained active all that time is a huge and long-running mystery in Halo, one I hope that we can get a straightforward answer to someday. Number 8. The Halo 3 ODST pre-mission interviews. So this isn't so much a single fact as a slightly obscure piece of marketing and lore. In the ramp-up to Halo 3 ODST's release, there were a number of avenues Microsoft took to promote the next Halo game, including video interviews highlighting each main character, save the rookie of course. While the videos themselves are sadly no longer able to be viewed, the transcripts are available on Halopedia. In each interview, Buck sits down with a member of the final Alpha 9, going over their service and personal history, and the mission they're about to be sent on. During it all, each member has an active brain scan showing what each interviewee is thinking of when asked particular questions. It's great insight into these characters and their respective histories. Particularly, if you found you had a problem with Mickey turning insurrectionist in Halo New Blood, these interviews show some potential early seeds of Mickey's betrayal, showing that he has some fond memories of his parents who were insurrectionists, that he still loves them, and that he lies when he says he doesn't remember them. It might be a stretch, but I found it enlightening. Regardless, the interviews are worth a read. Number 9. The Flood Worshipping Cult. You heard me right, a cult within the Covenant that worshipped the Flood. More or less. With a religious organization as large and old as the Covenant, it's impossible to keep everyone's beliefs in line, and often easier to let fringe groups exist in their own corners rather than try to snuff out anything that deviates from the core Covenant doctrine. One such fringe group was the Governors of Contrition, a sect that believed that everything created by the Forerunners was sacrosanct. Further, they believed that the Flood was a perfect life form created by the Forerunners, and as such, felt it was their duty to protect and even embrace the Flood. During the Great Schism and Battle of Installation 05, Shipmaster Tano Inanrari put his beliefs on full display when he ordered his ship to approach Installation 05 and allow the Flood to board it. Thankfully for the crew, Major Voro Manticree killed the shipmaster before any Flood could board. It's interesting to see such a sect be allowed to exist under the seemingly strict doctrine of the Covenant, and I'd love to see 343 explore the Governors and other sects at some point, displaying some of the various beliefs that have sprouted up in the over 3,000 years of Covenant history. And if that whole embrace the Flood thing sounds familiar, yes, it's virtually identical to Unitology from Dead Space, though I'd point out that Halo beat Dead Space to the punch by 2 years, with Ghosts of Onyx, the book which features the Governors of Contrition, coming out in 2006, and Dead Space releasing in 2008. And number 10, the origins of the Great Journey. This is one of those fun facts that could probably warrant its own dedicated video at some point. Everyone knows about the Great Journey, the culmination of the Covenant, the promise of godhood upon discovery and activation of the ancient Halos.
Halo, its divine wind will rush through the stars, propelling all who are worthy along the path to salvation.
But did you ever wonder where this misconception about the nature of the Halos came from? Well, as one might expect, it comes from the Forerunners themselves. There are two possible origins for the Great Journey in Covenant mythology. The first comes from text revealed in the 7th of Halo 3's terminals. In his final message to the librarian, as he is about to activate the Halo array, the ISO Didact says, "I will begin our great journey without you, carrying this bitter record. Those who came after will know what we bought with this false transcendence, what you bought, and the price you paid." As the messages in the terminals are coming from Mendicant Bias, it's entirely possible that similar records were extracted from the Mendicant Bias fragment that once inhabited the Forerunner keyship that sat at the center of High Charity. The Covenant is known to have mistranslated Forerunner words before, such as the glyph for Reclaimer being translated as Reclamation. The other possible origin of the Great Journey comes from when the Sanshayum, or Prophets, along with hundreds of other species, were being held on the Ark following the activation of the Halo array. As the Forerunners waited for the galaxy to be cleansed of the Flood and readied for repopulation, some curious Sanshayum would approach their Forerunner overseers, sometimes overhearing bits of conversation, including the Forerunners' plans for a great journey out of the galaxy after the receding. Which of these contributed to the Covenant belief in the Great Journey is unknown. It's possible both were influences or that neither were, and some other similar record led to the false beliefs the Covenant would carry. Whatever the case, it is clear that following the firing of the array, the Forerunners called their departure from our galaxy a great journey, and it was the discovery of this journey that led to the Covenant beliefs of transcendence 100,000 years later. And that's 10 things you may or may not have known about the Halo series. What did you think? Did you learn anything new? And do you enjoy this format? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and until next time, this has been Halo Canon. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider subscribing, and if you really love me, hit that notification bell and leave a thumbs up. These both really help out the channel. I wouldn't be where I am now without your views and support, so once again, thank you. Keep on being awesome, Canonites.